Hi everybody, welcome back to Sunshine Soap and Candle Company. Today I'm going to be sharing with you for the first time ever how to make a candle with a wooden wick. Over the years I have tried this again and again and I've never felt great with my results. Either my flame was too small or my flame was too big, or I didn't understand how to trim wooden wick candles, and now I finally have made a candle that I'm really proud to share with you all. In this video today, I'm going to be going over exactly how to make this candle, including resources and recipes so you can replicate it exactly if you like. I'm also going to be going over my cost of goods and services and how much it costs to make just one of these candles, and talking a little bit about how I would price this candle if I was going to sell it, and maybe ways to cut costs for your candle making so that you can up your profit if you're selling your candles. So in this video today, you will also be able to find the exact recipe in the description box below. If you're new to my channel or you haven't heard about my Patreon campaign yet, I really encourage you to check it out. The link to my campaign can be found also in the description box below. And even though I'm sharing the full formula for this candle recipe in the description box, joining my campaign is a great way to support me and to help me to continue to do what I do on a weekly basis, which is share with you weekly formulas and tutorials. Next month will be the 6-year anniversary since the launch of my campaign. There's literally hundreds of formulas for you to take advantage of in the hair care, skin care, candle making, and soap making areas. I really hope you'll consider joining. It's a great way to support me. It's a great way to connect with me and other makers as well. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and place some wicks into these beautiful vessels. Now this is called the Muse vessel, and I got these from Makesy.com. They are a bit pricey, so if you're wondering about the cost per vessel, even with a 20% discount plus your shipping, which is going to be different for every person, my cost per vessel was $8.40. That did include tax and shipping for my regional area. So that is quite pricey for a vessel, but you can take a look at these and see that they're absolutely luxurious. So if you have a luxe line of candles, this would be perfect. You can use my affiliate link in the description box as well to purchase these if you like. They are about 3.5 inches in diameter, absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to go ahead and just place our wicks down. I'm only making 5 today. I am going to be putting these on my website, and I just want to see how they go before I make a whole bunch of them. So that way, if they don't do well, I can always just use them myself around the house because I think they're just absolutely gorgeous. So we're going to be using some wooden wicks today, and you can get these wicks from Hive and Honey. This is a great price for these wicks, I've noticed, if you get them at Hive and Honey. This is the wooden wick, Whisper Booster Wick 0.030. They are 5 inches in height and 1/2 inch in width. So I have found these to be really good with this wax and vessel combination that we're going to be using today. Wooden wicks are much differently sized than cotton wicks. So it's important to take a look at everything on the website regarding which wicks work best with which vessels, and then of course you're going to do your testing. Now I can talk a little bit about that. Each website will have or should have like a wick guide. So all we're going to do is just place this wick right inside this little clip here. We're going to push it down. I'm just getting these prepped. So anyway, each website should have a guide, a wick guide, so that, for instance, if you're purchasing wax and vessels and wicks, it can tell you approximately which wick with which wax works best in the vessel that you're using. I have found that that is a good guide. It's a good approximate guide. However, you still need to do all your own testing. It's rarely perfect. So you want to go one size up on your wick from what they have recommended and one size down, plus test what they have recommended. That way you get a good idea of what type of wick you need to use. So you want to go one size down and one size up plus the recommended. And even then it might not be totally perfect. You might get lucky. But even then it might not be totally perfect. You might want to even try going 2 sizes up and 2 sizes down and the recommended. Just do your testing, but start with what they recommend because that'll give you a good gauge. Testing does take time, which is one of the reasons why I have never shared a wooden wick tutorial. Okay, so what we're going to do now is just take some wick stickers and place these down. We're going to adhere these. So I'm just using these wick stickers here. You can get them on any candle website, candle supply website, or Amazon, probably. It's best to take them off first, stick them to the bottom, and then we're just going to eyeball where center is on this. You could use a ruler and put a dot in the middle, but I just eyeball this part. Okay, now that they're all wicked, we're going to move on to the next step, which is cutting up our wax. Now, just for your reference, these wicks cost 88 cents per wick over at Hive and Honey, where I also purchased my wax. So we're going to go ahead and cut up the wax for this project. So 88 cents per wick sounds kind of like a lot of money if you're comparing it to using cotton wicks, which are much cheaper. However, I will say that the Hive and Honey price for this wick is very good. So it's just a little bit more expensive. Again, this can be considered more of a luxurious type candle. All right, we're gonna go ahead and chop up our wax. And today we are using the soy bliss wax. In the scheme of waxes, this one is a little bit on the higher end side, and wax prices, you may have noticed, are starting to go up just a little bit. So this is the soy bliss wax, and the reason I'm using this wax is because I find it to be very consistently good at hot throw. And this particular recipe I'm going to be sharing with you today, it's probably one of the strongest candles I've ever made, hands down. So we are measuring out 58.5 ounces of wax today. These vessels hold about approximately 13 ounces of volume, fluid ounces each. So we're going to be making this with 58.5 ounces of wax, which is 90% of the recipe. And obviously you can see this wax does come in slab form, so it's a little bit, you know, cumbersome or whatever, but it's worth it because this is, to me, a really superior wax. It has great glass adhesion, really good consistent hot throw. Not everything throws well in this wax, but then again, that's why you test. So I love to share when I find something that works super well. All right, now we're gonna go and melt this down on the stove on low heat. We're gonna babysit it. We're not gonna leave it alone. We're gonna heat it up until it has reached 200 degrees Fahrenheit. I should mention I have this divided up between 2 pour pitchers because these only hold about 4 pounds each. And that's about the limit that you wanna hold and pour because it gets harder to pour if it goes above that max. So we are about 29.25 ounces of wax on each pour pitcher. Now I'm going to go ahead and heat this up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, while that's warming up and melting down, we're going to go ahead and weigh off our fragrance oil. So today I'm using the volcano type fragrance oil by Flaming Candle. And let me tell you, I know I'm probably late to the game when it comes to using a volcano type fragrance oil, but I'm using it now and I have to say it really does not disappoint. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, this is probably one of the strongest candles I've ever made. Compared to some of those other, bigger brands that you can find, this smells amazing. So I wish every candle I ever made came across with a really strong hot throw like this one. So I just can't say enough good. This is a really good one. It's got, if you're familiar with this volcano fragrance, it's kind of got top notes of citrus, smells very clean. But also has some watery notes. It's really, really good. So we're going to go ahead and weigh off 2 containers here for my 2 melting down wax pots. And this is going to be 3.25 ounces in each container for a total of 6.5 ounces of fragrance for this batch. And that is 10% of our formula. So the fragrance comes to... This particular fragrance comes to, for each candle, it's going to cost $1.14 at 10% of your formula. Perfect. We have just enough left here at 3.26, 3.25. So we are going to have just enough to make. I was testing this one in another candle. This was an 8-ounce container here. All right, these are both melted down and sitting right at 200, about 202, 203 degrees. So it's really important to pour the wax in right now for optimal scent throw with this particular wax. So I'm going to go ahead and pour this one in. And then we're going to pour this one in. We're going to give it a little stir. This doesn't really have to be stirred too much. Not like traditional soy wax that needs to be stirred for 2 minutes. This is comprised mostly of soy with a little bit of food grade paraffin. Just requires a little bit of stirring to bind the wax with the fragrance oil, especially if you're combining them at the proper temperature. So the next thing I'm going to do is go ahead and add a little bit of color. I just thought that a blue would look really nice with this, and it might look really nice also with this kind of iridescent sheen we have going on with some of the blues and purples I see. So we're going to do 2 drops in each container. It's roughly a drop per pound. I got this blue from Sierra Candles. This is that real concentrated liquid candle dye that you guys know that I like. I use it all the time for candle making if I'm going to be making a colored candle. So we're just going to go ahead and combine that. Sometimes I like to add my color before I melt anything down. Just add it to the wax. Now it looks super dark right now. Of course, it's not going to cure that way. It'll cure much later. But for a nice and concentrated color, for 1 drop per pound. If you use more than a drop per pound with this dye, you could wind out kind of clogging or choking your wick. So just be careful not to add too much. And again, test. Your color and all of these things are going to affect how your final product burns, actually. So you need to be careful with any additives you're using, fragrance, color, Vibar, stearic acid, beeswax. That's all going to affect how your candle burns. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and just start pouring. Slowly and carefully. I've had excellent results with the glass adhesion with this particular wax and vessel combination. I don't typically see any like wet spots or anything like that on the glass. But if I do anymore, that's just something that I ignore. I don't worry so much about that. Like I used to as a new candle maker, I used to get really bothered by things like that. Now I just kind of embrace the small imperfections. It's a handmade product. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm going to have a little bit of extra wax here because I had a little bit left over in my melt pot before I started from my last test. So there's a little bit left over here. And that's about how far I'm going to pour each one. I'm leaving about, I'd say a 1/4 of an inch, maybe closer to 1/2 inch, because I want to be able to cut the wick down short enough to place these beautiful lids on, and you don't want to get those wicks too short. Okay, so this is how they look right now. I'm going to allow these time to set up, and I'll bring you back for the next step. All right, so these have been setting up now for a few hours, and it's time to go ahead and trim the wicks. I really like the color that these came out to be. Really perfect, is exactly what I was going for. It looks really pretty with the iridescent. So I know I don't have the proper tool yet for trimming these wooden wicks. So I'm just going to use some nail clippers. I'm going to trim them kind of up higher at first and then get a little bit closer. So also, if you've been following along, I'm going to go ahead and reveal the cost to make this actual candle. The total cost to make this candle is $13.58. And that is quite a lot of money to make a candle. Like I talked about earlier in the beginning of the video, there are ways to reduce that cost if that's what you're going for. You can, of course, use a vessel that's not as pricey as this one. That would be your biggest cost. You know, you can find containers. You guys have seen some of my other videos. You can find containers in the $2 range that look really good, and then just create a nice label for it. And also, you can not use wooden wicks, but mainly it's the vessel cost and the wax cost here that's going to be the big factors. So, you know, you could just use a different wax, use a different vessel, and make a completely different candle, or a variation. If you want to just make it a little less expensive, just a different vessel with the same other materials would also work good. And you could, I did check into buying these materials bulk, the vessels and the wax in particular, and it actually doesn't really take that much money off. If you're buying everything in bulk, at least with these particular vessels and this particular wax, it didn't really reduce the cost that much. So if you were gonna get, you know, a large quantity, this would be for like your mid-range. I priced it for someone that was gonna be buying not a tiny bit, but also not a lot, like somewhere in the middle. So if you were gonna go up and buy a whole bunch more quantity of this stuff, it would help some, but not tremendously. So what I would price these candles at, bottom line, I would probably price these at around $30, maybe be closer to $35, so then I could put them on sale if need be and still make a little bit of a profit on these. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean these up, and then I will probably just clean the tops up with a heat gun here if there's any cracking, and then I'll bring you back for a demonstration on how these burn. Just gonna go ahead and clean up any of this cracking from where I disturbed the wick a little bit. All right, I will bring you back tomorrow for a little demonstration on how these burn. All right, it is the next day, and we're gonna go ahead and light these candles. So the white one over here on the right is one that I was testing, and it's on its third burn. And then this is the one we made yesterday. So I'm gonna go ahead and burn both of these just so you can see what it looks like after a progression. And I've trimmed off the burnt pieces of this wick, and I have trimmed this wick to about 1/4 of an inch. All right, I will bring you back for progress updates so you can see how this is burning and how it looks after several hours. So here we are at the 1 hour mark. And if you listen carefully, you can hear the crackling, the soft crackling sounds the wicks make. And that's what they look like. They're not producing any smoke. And by the 4 hour mark, we should be all the way to the edges of the glass for sure. So I'll bring you back for another update. All right, we are at the 3 hour mark, and we're getting a good melt pool here on both candles. Hasn't reached totally to the edges of the glass. So we'll give it about another hour, and that will be the final update. But there's no smoke. The flame is still the same size it was a couple hours ago, and it's looking good and smells fantastic.